You guys, welcome back. 888-659-3727. Great to be back live from Los Angeles. You are listening to and watching The Bald Truth. We are changing the show up a little bit because we are going to be broadcasting this program soon on Clear Channel's iHeartRadio. So kind of have to, make a couple of changes. And one of the major changes is I can't curse anymore, which is a real pain in the butt. Actually, I could say ass, I think. Pretty sure that I can. But which is great news for the show and great news for hair loss sufferers across the country and around the world. So, my question to you guys was, would you go? Do you think this guy who canceled his surgery made the right decision? This guy could have been the greatest surgeon ever, the greatest. He could have received the best hair transplant in the world, but he chose not to have a transplant by this doctor because he believed, based on this doctor's Facebook images that were uploaded and his presence and all the stuff that he shared on Facebook with his friends, that he was a drunk, that he just partied too much, that he was irresponsible, and someone who this particular patient did not want to have surgery performed by. I get that. I agree with it. And I think this particular doctor, in my view, is a complete moron. Let me know what you guys think. 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Spencer, how are you today?
Johnny, what's happening, man? How are you?
Good. How are you?
You know what? I'm not bad. I can't complain. Are you able to hear me okay? Phone's working? Everything's good?
Yeah. I can't, for some reason, I can't get you on the computer any volume, but picture is great.
Really?
Hair looks good.
Well, thank you. I wonder why. We have to check with Andrew Zarian to see what the problem is.
Yeah, I don't know what the issue is. It's probably on my end.
Now, is that the entire show?
The entire, yeah. I can't. I can go to other YouTube or whatever just to see it, and I've got sound there, but I don't have sound.
What you can do is you could either check some of the other feeds and see if there's sound on there.
Either Justin TV or Vaughn. I may do that.
Justin TV, Vaughn. You could also just check the audio.
Well, I did do Justin, and it still didn't work.
That's weird.
It may be on my end.
So have you been? So were you able to hear what I had to say at all? It's basically what my question was. Did you hear that? The opening was basically talking about a patient who contacted me and decided to cancel his surgery based on seeing his doctor's Facebook page. The fact that the doctor was...
I caught that being on the phone. I heard that, and I think he made the wise choice. Very wise choice. If he's not confident in getting cut, he made the right decision. Had I had more information on the physician that botched me up, I probably wouldn't be talking to you today about this.
And, listen, I'm not saying that this particular doctor is bad at what he does, because the truth is he's not. He's not someone that I currently work with or have even considered recommending. But, he also has never applied to the organization, so I have no idea. We don't receive a tremendous amount of complaints from this particular doctor, about this particular doctor. So, and everything on paper looks really, really good, except for his Facebook page. And I got to tell you, I had, when I took a look at it, I had to laugh. I couldn't believe what I saw. It's not as though like he's running around nude or anything, but it's basically like, this is a grown man who's acting like he's on spring break.
Like a frat boy.
All the time, yeah.
Well, I think the fellow that contacted you and said he canceled his surgery, I think that's a good thing. Reason being, the old saying, you measure twice, you cut once. If he's not sure, I would err on his caution. I think he made the right choice.
Well, I do too, but I think this is a real important lesson for physicians who are listening to this broadcast or who are going to listen to it on the websites or on YouTube or wherever. everything you put out there is for public consumption now. And once it is uploaded to, especially a resource like Facebook, they own these images. It's theirs. It's out there forever. Out there in perpetuity. Now, yes, you can. There are privacy settings, and there are ways to kind of, avoid some of the issues that could arise. But the truth is, what kind of judgment do you have to even post it, even privately, even just to your friends? There was a time in life when there was no Facebook. And if you wanted to contact a friend, you would pick up the telephone and you would tell them your story. And if you wanted to have a conversation with them about something that you may not want the public to know about, you would tell them in private. Every aspect of our lives now has to be shared. Everyone who goes to a restaurant, like Andrew Zarian, for crying out loud. If someone wanted to kill this guy, they would know how to find him. I don't understand it. Why does and when you're a doctor, I think it's ridiculous, in my view, to put every aspect of your life online. Going to dinner with my wife, and they're taking selfies, talking about their anniversaries and their birthdays and their kids' birthdays, putting pictures of their children, their 13-year-old kids, in bikinis on the internet, on their Facebook page. They think that's okay.
Well, the thing about Facebook, in my opinion, it's sort of like passing notes in high school. It's just now everybody can read them.
That's actually not such a bad analogy. That makes sense.
And people put, in my opinion, way, way too much information on those. That even if you limit so many people, a certain amount of people to see it, it still can be disseminated out. Leaks happen all over. Hell, they happen in our government. And
look, dude, even the most innocuous of images can be taken and manipulated and changed, and someone can take your content and pervert it somehow and put it out there for the world to see. If a doctor has a colleague, and I've seen this happen. We run the most trafficked private message forum in the industry. And I have seen doctors go on and try to bash their colleagues. It's insane. So imagine what could happen if somebody puts a picture of themselves, drinking out of a red cup with their arm around the guy in blackface, and someone has a hard-on for them. What that can do, the damage that can do to them.
And it can be perfectly harmless.
Absolutely. Listen, I don't think this guy's as a bad guy. Look, I love to go out drinking. I talk about it all the time. I'm not going out. I'm not cutting your head open. I'm not performing cosmetic surgery. I don't have to be up at 7 o'clock in the morning and go to the OR and have someone's life in my hands.
And to be fair, too, the guy could be on a 2-week vacation, and, it could be blown out of proportion.
Agreed.
That's not, his Facebook page doesn't bother me. What bothers me is, and maybe I'm being a little biased, is he hasn't been vetted through an organization like yours.
Well, listen, I could certainly appreciate that, but that's the point that I'm trying to make, and I know the point that I'm trying to make, is that everybody judges you by, you
only get one chance to make a first impression.
Well, the thing is, you have to me, that just shows poor judgment. So if he has the judgment to put something like that on the internet for public consumption, how do I know how good his judgment is in the OR? How do I know his patient selection is going to be, reasonable? How do I know he's not going to be performing surgery on 20-year-olds who are not candidates for surgery? For
every 20 steps that he went forward, he just went 30 back. So he's got another 10 to get even.
Right. So this guy could be, he could have graduated from Harvard Medical School. He could be a board-certified surgeon, an actual general surgeon, and then decided to go into surgical hair restoration. He could be a board-certified plastic surgeon, for instance, and then decided to go into surgical hair restoration. Guys who have tremendous qualifications on paper, but just by putting out that image and having that crazy Facebook page, to me, completely destroys the guy's credibility. And it's unfortunate, but I think it is totally fair to make that judgment. And I don't think it's being hypocritical at all.
Well, I think so, too. Even if it's with a surgeon that's been recommended as, very high credentials, and has been.
Dude, let me tell you something. If I saw somebody in the IHRS who displayed some of the images that this guy was displaying, and I guess you know what? That's a good point. I need to check all these guys' Facebook pages to see what's going on, because to me that is not representing what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to represent in a good light. To me, that is not behavior that that is becoming of a world-class cosmetic surgeon or any professional.
The sad part is, Spencer, some of these guys may, you could get with these smartphones today. A couple people could take a picture, throw them on a Facebook page, and you're out there. Even if you're trying to be discreet.
Yeah, listen, the whole thing is just. It's funny because I said that before I read the chat, and this guy, Mike Canada, said, am I going to be checking doctors' Facebook pages before accepting them? You know what? That's not a bad idea.
Well, I don't think it's bad. I mean, you have to realize, too, you have a reputation, and if you're recommending these physicians and they don't have quite the moral character, you have to, as a patient, you have to say to yourself, why would I want to risk myself with someone like this if,
Look, listen, all I can do is, you can't control what people do behind us. I'm pretty much a libertarian, I mean, live and let live. I think that, let people do whatever they do behind closed doors, but just be smart about it. And you know what? If there's a possibility, especially when they're dabbling with drugs and alcohol, that it could affect the outcome of someone's surgery. Look, people who are having surgery are taking an incredible chance to begin with. Even in the best hands, you don't know you don't know what the outcome's going to be.
But if you have reservations, like this fella had, and my advice is don't do it. Even if it's one of the stellar doctors that are out there, and you have reservations for whatever reason, don't do it. You can always go back. If you have any apprehensions, because again, like you say, once you're cut, you're cut.
That's right. That's right. So, okay, so say even if you have great surgery with this guy, how do you know you're going to have good follow-up? How do you know? I mean, if the guy's out there, and you're right, yeah, maybe it was a 2-week party, but, you can tell when you look at a person's Facebook page if they're constantly checking in from different restaurants and traveling places and always at some sort of at a dance club or whatever it is. And we're not talking about a very young guy either. This guy's in his 40s. I don't know if he's having a midlife crisis or what. But it was pretty insane. But Johnny, man, I want to thank you for taking the time to call and check your audio, because I just asked Andrew. He said everything is fine, and everyone else.
It's probably on my end. I probably have an issue here. I've got an iPad. Maybe I can pick it up on the iPad.
All right, man. Listen,
I'm getting into the digital age here, Spencer, slowly but surely.
Well, you know what? We're the same age, and it's a real pain in the ass to learn this.
We're 39.
39. How'd you know? All right, man. Thanks, Johnny. Take care.
Bye.
888-659-3727. Would you go to a doctor who has a really insane Facebook page? Would you? Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Hey, you're on the air. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
This is Tim from Boston.
Tim from Boston. How are you, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm not bad. I can't complain. What's happening?
I heard that guy talking about the guy with the crazy Facebook page, and I thought I had to call in.
Yeah, tell me.
I definitely think that would put me off for sure, 100%. Like even the slightest, not even like stuff like that, but just slight things, that to me is a pretty major thing.
Well, what would you consider a slight thing?
Just like, somebody trying to, sell me some sort of product they sell, or somebody who is, kind of not attentive to whatever it is I'm looking to do, or whatever it is I'm trying to achieve. Something small, but I think, having a Facebook page, it's sort of unprofessional. I mean, think about it if you were in any other profession and somebody saw that. You know, I work in a school system, and if somebody saw my Facebook page and I'm 25, and they saw the things that 20-year-olds do, I might not have a job.
Right, and that's actually very well put. That's the way that we live. But I also think that it's interesting. We live in this culture where Facebook rules, Google rules. It's just the way of our world, and people are compelled to somehow, for some reason, to share their life over the internet on this insane website. So I think that physicians, they're human beings. We all grew up and had families and went to school, and they just decided to go in this direction. So I mean, I can see the human element of it. I don't mind a guy who maybe will post stuff with him and his family or his interests or stuff like that. I think it's a little weird. I really think it should be. I really think certain professionals should be very private, but whatever. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, I know guys who are good doctors, and they will promote some sort of a product they're selling on their Facebook page as well. Not just their. I mean, what do you think about? Okay, it's one thing to see this stuff on a private Facebook page, but what about if they start promoting stuff on a professional Facebook page? How do you feel about that?
I'm not a big fan of it. I'm really not.
I'm not. Listen, I'm not either. I'm not. And there's some good doctors who do it, and I think it's a big mistake.
Right. Yeah. So I've always, I've looked into hair transplant surgery, and I've always preferred the people who seem more low key, or who, seem more conservative in whatever it is they're doing. They're not pushing pushing things in your face, or even if that's not what they're trying to do. It comes off that way in any profession, though, not just theirs.
Well,
I think anytime you're advertising something, you're sort of pushing something in somebody's face that and it can come off the wrong way. It can come off the wrong way.
And I agree with you 100%. I think there's a fine line. Listen, all these guys are out here to make a living too, and
I get it.
They're utilizing social media because they have to utilize social media to kind of sell their wares. But I do think the best way to do it is just to simply educate the patient about what you do. If you've won certain awards and you have certain degrees, great. Those are part of your credentials. Show before and after. Show videos of your patients. Talk about what you do and your philosophy and why you do it. But selling this shampoo and this, scalp concealer and this and that, if you're a physician, you know what? You could sell that out of your office. You can offer that in your practice, or you can have kind of like a separate company selling it for you on a different website. But don't make that connection, because that is really a big turnoff. And I understand that. And I appreciate you telling me that. And you're right. In your profession, you would be fired for the stuff that this guy was doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so do I think it's only natural for people to say, I'm not going to go to this guy for him to lose clientele? Absolutely. Just as it is in any other profession.
Well, let me ask you, and I appreciate you responding to my questions and to this guy's, this was, I was just so intrigued by the email. And it was a long email, and he really kind of went into detail about what he thought when he did his research and all that stuff. But I just... And it's, I'm looking at the chat, and it's right. Maybe I will start doing this. When guys apply to the organization, I should take a look at their Facebook page, and I should take a look at everybody's Facebook page who's already part of what we do. Because hell, I don't know what's going on there in their personal lives.
And the thing about Facebook too is that you can privatize it. You don't have to put it out for the world to see.
That's right.
Not that maybe that guy doesn't know that you can do that, but I don't have any problem with people posting, occasion pictures on there or, whatever.
Right.
But, if you're somebody who works where in a field where public perception is, an important part of the job, then, you need to privatize the stuff. Just because, one person can take it one way and another person can take it a completely different way.
Absolutely.
And if you're trying to appeal to the masses, then, you got to keep it low-key.
Well, I think that's really well said. Now, do you have any questions or concerns about, what you're dealing with far as your hair loss?
No, I just one thing I called in again to just let you guys know I was growing at one point was growing my hair out and then just shaved it all the way down, and I've been kind of going this way now for like 3 months, where I let it grow out to like a 2 with the clipper.
Right.
And now I'm just keeping it down, and I think I think I got to say I'm just going to keep it like this.
And that's it. You won. You won. You won the battle, dude.
Well, yeah, and I think the other thing is I'll just keep it this way until the inevitable comes when I have to take the the razor to it. But I just I think the thing is I've realized that I'm pretty I've just had a real sit down with my dad and actually another physician, and they said you just have to accept. You might not like it, you can be angry about it, but you just have to accept it. And I'm learning, it's difficult every day to do it, but I'm starting to, and I'm still struggling with it on, a day to day where, it's like, man, I'm never going to have long hair again, probably. But, it seems like with each day that passes, it's getting a little better. So, I just thought I call and let you guys know that I took it down again and probably going to stay this way.
Well, I think that's a powerful, message that you're giving, especially the young guys. And I think the advice that your dad and his friend, or you said it was his friend, right? Another doctor. I think that's
another doctor that he knows.
That's important advice.
Yeah.
If you go online and go on YouTube or go on TED and watch some videos of people who have really overcome major obstacles, major losses in their lives. People have lost their limbs who have been able to not only overcome that tremendous loss, but somehow harnessed the power that was really deep inside them that they never would have even known they had before to accomplish great things, live their lives, get married, have, families and just be incredibly productive people. And they have to wake up in the morning and they have to put their effing legs on.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, think about that. I speak to these guys who are like, they can't live without their hair. Okay, and they don't want to get a hair transplant. Try a hairpiece. There's no way I'd wear, a prosthetic. No way I would ever wear a hairpiece. It's ridiculous. But they'd rather live their lives completely miserable than trying to do something that will make them feel more comfortable in their own skin. Possibly, it may not work out for them. You found your way. You're working the shaved head look. You're cutting it down. You're able to deal with it, and it's only going to get easier for you.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is my dad was like if you continue to worry about it, he said you can try everything, and it's not going to guarantee that it works. Like he said, I can't guarantee that the finasteride is going to prevent you from going. In fact, I think I've progressed on the finasteride. I think it worked for about a year, and then I think I've progressed a little. I'm not sure.
And you know what? And that happens. It happens with some guys, or some guys, they may have a slight progression in the hairline, but the rest of the miniaturization reverses, and they kind of stabilize.
It might be what's happening. I'm not sure, but my dad was like, you can't let your life pass you by. I was trying to watch a movie with him, and I couldn't watch it because it was just so, I was so frustrated, and you could tell that I was just so, because we had gone up to, so I get this thing now where I, because I shave my head, I go out now.
Right.
And family members who, I don't really see my siblings on a day-to-day basis, and they'll be like, why the hell are you shaving your head,
Yeah.
And, it's like, my parents know why, but they can see me just getting totally pissed off, enraged.
Of course.
So, right. And then, they just see it my dad was like, you can't let this affect your life like this. He's like, you just gotta, you can't let it, take over your life. It's like, you get the rest of your life to live, and I was telling him how I was worried about not feeling as attractive as, I once did, and, not having success with, women my age anymore. And he was like, who cares?
And that's...
he says you're going to be better off not caring, and you're going to have more success, people are going to find you more attractive, probably now more than ever, because you're going to have an attitude of not caring, and it's going to come off as confidence.
I have to tell you that your father sounds like an incredible dude. I mean, most guys...
Yeah, he really is, man.
Most guys don't have dads like you have, and you really... Yeah. I'm sure I could tell that you're thankful and you're grateful and you appreciate how great your dad is, but he sounds like a totally solid dude. That is, I mean, that's such a hard thing to come by. I mean, I have never, and my father recently passed away, I can't remember any type of a conversation like that ever. He gave me some advice in life. Mm-hmm. If you're broke, you're a joke. That's his one piece of advice. Take care of your teeth and your credit, the rest will fall into place. That's my dad's, which is actually great advice, but that's basically the extent of it. Mm-hmm. I had really no guidance. I had no one to talk to. I had, nothing. I actually went through, like, I was initially, when I was your age, I was trying to hide the temporal area when it was receding, and I had very, very thick hair at the time. So he said, the way you're combing it and your hair's so thick, it looks like you're wearing a toupee. I was 23 or 22. How do you think a kid feels when he hears that from his father?
Yeah. Yeah, I can't even...
It's horrible.
I don't know, man.
So I just want to tell you, you are lucky, and listen, let my father rest in peace, but that's just the way that it was, I mean, he just was not a great communicator, at least with me. But you have a great dad.
I do. I can't say that, I think, my hair loss definitely 100% comes from my mother's side of the family. Her reaction to it is far different from my father. She doesn't even want to talk about it. I think because she knows.
And I also, I think there's a measure of guilt there.
There is a guilt thing. Yeah. It's definitely, yeah. So I don't even get into it with her, really. I think she knows how frustrated I am. But yeah, if you can find somebody to relate to, or somebody to, I think the thing with my father is whenever I realize how, I can be absurd about the hair, you know what I mean? I really can. I can get absurd about it. And so, I try to think, like, you try to look at somebody, would somebody react this way? Is this how somebody would react to this?
Yeah, you think to yourself, what would my father do? When I was a kid, I was like, what would the Fonz do? And that's probably a reference you didn't even know. But that's, I just realize how lucky you are, the fact that you're able to have these conversations. You're going to get past this in a way that a lot of guys they don't have that opportunity. They just don't have that opportunity. And I'm glad that you're able to call this broadcast. You're able to talk to me, but you're also able to share your experiences with the guys who are your age. Because, you're frustrated. You hate it. You're listening to this show for a reason.
Yeah. But
you're going to get past it. I can guarantee it. I already see what's going on in your life. And your dad is absolutely right. Let me tell you about women. I'm an old guy. The best-looking guy, you could be in a room with a guy that looks like Brad Pitt. If you're good-looking enough and you have real confidence, not, manufactured bullshit, not over-the-top stuff. You just really are confident in who you are. I can guarantee you are the guy that gets the girl. That's just the way that it works in the end. As you get older, you realize all the really hot women are... Yeah, I mean, they're with good-looking guys, but, they're not with the supermodel guy with the incredible head of hair. Once a girl is 30 years old, her mate is usually balding. That's the way that it is.
I work in an elementary school, but most of the kids' parents are, in their 30s.
Yeah.
I'd say 60, probably more than half. More than half are losing their hair.
Yeah. That's the way that it is, man. So, I mean, but listen, you're in a good place emotionally and mentally, and I appreciate you calling because I think this is an important call. It really is. So, listen, man, keep listening, keep calling, and, let us know what's going on in your life.
I will, man.
All right, man. Take care. Thanks for the call.
You too.
All right. 888-659-3727. I'll take another call before I go to break. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Spencer. This is Dick from D.C.
Hey, what's happening, man? Long time.
Oh, yeah. I think I just want to say that the previous caller I was listening in, he seems like a very intelligent young man. And I know firsthand. It's losing hair at such a young age is tough, and he just seems like a guy who's going to psychologically push his way through it. And I think
that's the entire battle, Vic. Everything else. If you end up losing the hair, and people think when they're like the guys in the message forums think that's losing the battle. Losing the hair isn't losing the battle. It's losing the ability to deal, or not having the ability, or not being able to gain the ability to deal with that loss, to somehow move on with your life, even though you have that loss. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I think about all of the BS that I've had to deal with over the years, especially from the younger guys. I'm very open about the fact that I, have to paint my head, or I'm open about the fact that I've tried, small hair systems in the back or wherever, and I've done whatever I can. I wear a lot of hairspray, and I figure out a way to make myself feel as comfortable as I can in my own skin. And frankly, when I'm walking in the streets, no one is looking at my hair, and I feel very comfortable until I tell somebody what I do. There are guys, and there's some real haters out there that, because you admit to having this Achilles heel, and because they're dealing with hair loss, they'll say, what a lot of people would think is, cruel stuff about me personally. Friends are going to do that to guys, especially when they're young. They're going to do that to guys who are losing their hair at a young age. And all that stuff, all this feedback could really F a person up unless you have the wherewithal and the backbone and the support system like this guy Tim has to kind of get past it. And then once you show that you're past it, all those comments end because they weren't real to begin with.
Absolutely. And
go ahead.
The thing is that your show actually saved me from myself. I think that I don't think I can word it any way better. Your show, you saved you and the supporting cast, but I'd say mainly you saved me from myself. And I think at the end of the day, that's what the Bald Truth's about. It's about saving men from themselves first, and then from the extremely dangerous world of what all the products and surgeries are out there to offer. And I know you do that through the IAHRS, but mainly I'd say the fact that you give us a platform, not only online but on your live show. It's hard to put into words how much it helps, because nowhere else are we allowed to voice what Joe calls the suffering. And the reason I say that you saved me from myself is because I would have jumped in to a FUE procedure. But let me tell you, there are a lot of great doctors out there doing work, because I check out the IAHRS website and I see the before and after pictures, and there are a lot of great doctors.
Sure.
And I would have jumped into surgery, definitely. But you stopped me. You actually stopped me and said, whoa, hold up there. And you know what? It was 2 years ago that you stopped me. And you actually helped me so much, because in these 2 years I've grown. I keep listening to your show, and now I've come to the point where I'm like your previous caller. I just get a Walmart, get one of those electrical trimmers, and trim it down to a 2 every single week.
And that's it. You move on with your life, man.
And I'm moving on, and I have to thank you for that.
Well, I'm glad that I was able to, and our cast of characters have been able to help you, and to help you get past probably the most vital point in hair loss, and that's the initial throws. That's the, when you're at a tipping point, when you're ready to do something drastic to correct your hair loss. That's really an important tipping point in your life, because if you make the wrong decision, that's a decision that you will regret for the rest of your life.
And you're right. You're so right, Spencer. Because the fact is, every day since that day where you and Specs convinced me not to do it, every day since that has been a growing experience. And then I still like to watch your show. I think it's the best show on the internet. I still watch it.
Well, I appreciate that, man.
What I do is now I have a different perspective. Now, since you've helped me come out of this, I watch it to help educate myself on the industry, because it's still interesting to find out what's going out there with a different attitude. And I think that's what's really the thing.
Well, now that the show's kind of evolving, and we're not really going back on terrestrial radio, but we're going to be, broadcasting through mainstream internet radio that's basically owned by terrestrial radio. So, there are changes that we have decided to make, and that I have decided to make. And one of the things is I really wanted to make it a more positive experience for people. Now, while Joe is always going to be a part of this broadcast, there was a kind of a running theme, and things seemed to be getting worse with him emotionally, and it was starting to bring the show to a halt, where there was only a very small subset of hair loss sufferers who were really engaged and really interested in being engaged in the broadcast. And these were really, sadly, kind of the worst of the worst on the spectrum. The guys that really could never kind of come up out of that dive, and who were just, rapidly, seeing the ground coming up at them. And a lot of these guys relate to Joe. Now, the reason I've had Joe on for so long is because I believe that there's a part of Joe in all of us. But I also wanted to kind of allow guys to hear some of the, the positive stuff. Allow guys to see, listen to guys like Tim, listen to guys like yourself, listen to guys who have come to terms with it, no matter what they've tried to do. Whether it's Joe Tillman, who's had multiple surgeries to get to the point where he looks like he's got this incredibly, great looking head of hair. That's what he needed to do because he made a mistake early on. Who knows? Maybe he would have shaved his head like you if he never would have had that bad hair transplant early on. And maybe Joe from Staten Island would have been a different person if he didn't decide to make those fatal mistakes based on being so desperate.
Right.
So, your story is important. The fact that you have been a long-time listener, you've been, well, not that long, but, a couple of years, and the fact that you came into the game thinking that you were going to have surgery, and the only reason you were listening is to find out what surgeon to go to.
Yeah, I mean, I really like you too.
I appreciate that.
But the fact is that since you stopped me from that, it's let me step out of the bubble, if that's a smart way of saying it, and be an observer instead of an actor. And so what that lets me do is look from the outside in. And now I'm seeing that if I had jumped the gun and done it, I had no idea how it would have turned out, because, like before, my hair loss is extensive, and just putting in some follicles here and there, it would have probably
it would have been a disaster. This is what would have happened. You may have had decent FUE. You could have gone to somebody who was using a small handheld punch. Scarring might have been minimal. I remember from your story that you said that you have you're Brazilian, I think. So you have darker skin. There's a greater chance that the even the scarring is going to be minimal. It's going to be a little bit more visible on you. But even if none of that occurred, there's only so much hair that could be moved. And would you be happy with that small amount of hairs? Even if it's like 3,000 grafts that could be moved, and if somehow you were not scarred in the back, which you would be from having that many FUEs extracted, I mean, you probably would end up shaving your head pretty close anyway. So then you might have gotten involved with the SMP and stuff like that. It could have been a headache that you would have had to deal with for the rest of your life. And now you're free from that.
You're absolutely right. And I know you got a lot of callers, so I just want to conclude by telling your viewers, guys out there who are young, I started listening to this show when I was 24. I'm about 30 now. And you know what? Spencer gave me the absolute best advice. It's a permanent decision. Surgery is a permanent decision, and he saved me from that. And I just want you guys to know that things change. Your attitude changes when you later on. So please listen to Spencer, you guys. He's the first person to tell you don't jump into anything permanent. So please listen to him, you young cats out there. And thank you, Spencer. And thanks for keeping Joe on the show. I mean, I really like his second half of the news correspondent role you've given him. I really like that.
I don't even know if he's calling in. I don't recognize. I mean, unless he's calling from a different number, none of these numbers are him. So I hope that he's okay. I'm going to have to check him out.
Well, hey, thanks, Spencer.
All right,
you
man.
have a great night, man.
All right, Vic. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Take it easy. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Lively show. I think that especially you young guys out there who are spending so much time on Bald Truth Talk, listen, the traffic's great. You know, from a business standpoint, having all this traffic, having you guys sit there on the forum, reading what's going on, looking through images, just, you know, spending 24 hours, 7 days a week on the forum, it's terrific. But you know what? I'd rather you didn't do it. I'd rather you go outside and live your lives. I'd rather you figure out something else to do. Shut your laptops, get away from your computer, and live. Nothing's happening on the forum that you need to check it every day. You know, my father, let him rest in peace, told me several times that I'm the only guy that he knows who's working to put himself out of business. The fact that we get so many applications to join our organization, and the fact that I turn these guys, every week we turn people down. There's new guys who are constantly getting into the field who may have learned to do it right, but just don't have enough experience under their belt. And they're sitting there, checks in hand, and I have to turn them down. Sometimes I think I'm stupid because I get crap anyway. So I might as well take these guys. 888-659-3727. Give us a call. If you have any questions, concerns about your hair loss, of course, this is the Bald Show. If you guys want to continue to discuss this whole Facebook thing that I brought up, the fact that there's doctors out there that are basically exposing their lives in ways that, I mean, in no other industry would they get away with it if they were working for somebody. Why would they choose to put themselves out there in such an unprofessional way? 888-659-3727.
The winner of 7 prestigious Golden Forehead Awards.
My family's always arguing. It always starts off innocent and then it gets vicious right away. So I was like, hey, looks like you're losing some hair. At least my wife's not a whore.
Spencer David Kobren.
You guys got a few minutes left, actually like a half an hour left of the broadcast. I'll give out the phone number, 888-659-3727. Obviously, this is the hair loss show. We talk about hair loss. We talk about what it is to be a hair loss sufferer and how to deal with hair loss. If you're just tuning in to the end of the broadcast and you're seeing me for the first time and you're like, okay, this is an older dude who still seems to have some hair in his head. That's because I made the right moves at a young age. I was very lucky to kind of have the ability to step back, not get butchered, not have one of these clubs shave my head only to glue an artificial hairpiece on me, which is what the hair club wanted to do. Looks like we're having some problem with my video, but we'll see if that's still happening. And I was lucky enough to again, for some reason, have the wherewithal not to make some of the mistakes that a lot of the guys who are still on the message forums, and I understand why they are, made back in my day, back in the late 80s, back in the early 90s, back when I was going through the initial throes of hair loss, when the hair loss world, when the hair loss industry was in it was in the dark ages. You guys think you have problems today? Holy S. I gotta start saying S and F instead of the actual words. I gotta get used to doing that. Holy S. You guys have no idea. When I see you kids complaining on Bald Truth Talk about the options that you have, it's insane to me. There were no options back then. You know what my options were? 4-millimeter plugs, Lonitin tablets that I had to take to a compounding pharmacy to be put into a pestle and mortar, whatever those things are called, ground down, mixed with alcohol, and I would have to put that on my head. That's what we had. Having finasteride and dutasteride and having the ability to have a hair transplant the way that they have evolved today is a effing luxury. To be able to wear an undetectable hairpiece if you know how to shop for one is a luxury that was not afforded to guys of my era. That's the New York accent coming out. I mean, you realize what a pain in the ass that was? To be losing your hair in 1986? At the height of my attractiveness, meaning that I was young and I was just coming into my own. It had hair down to here that was beautiful, like spun gold. It was insane. To start losing your hair in a time where hair meant so much. We didn't have the luxury to even consider shaving our heads. It wasn't in vogue. It wasn't acceptable unless you were Yul Brynner or Telly Savalas, who you kids probably don't even know even existed. You don't even know who they are. Those were the two bald cats. Yul Brynner really pulled it off, though. So when I see you guys complaining about what we have today, and some of the really obsessed cats that are like, I can't believe it's, no one's finding the cure. Just spit on my mic. No one's working for us. Do you know how far we've come? To actually be able to have surgical hair restoration that looks like your own hair growing out of your head, like real hair, that could be packed so densely and grow so well and just orchestrated the entire surgery, the way that the team works together when you're going to a good clinic. That didn't exist. When I wrote The Bald Truth back in 1998, there were 11 doctors who I could recommend. And they were the only ones who were willing to adapt at the time the concept of follicular unit transplantation, the fact that hair follicles grow in natural groupings. And that if you cut those groupings, or somehow manipulate those groupings, or group those groupings together, which is what they were doing with mini and micrographs and with larger plugs, you're not providing the patient with what nature provided them with. And the fact that Bobby Limmer saw this, brought this to a conference, and everyone just was like, you know what, it's too much effing trouble to do. That's what we had back then. And frankly, that's what we had before the bald truth. No matter what some people may think, especially the young guys who don't understand the real history of this industry, before that book was luckily published by Pocket Books, by Simon & Schuster, before I was able to sell that idea and that manuscript, there was no financial incentive or pressure for the industry to change. There were a few guys out there who decided, you know what, this makes sense, we're going to do it. But there was no way to market that. There's no way to get it out to the masses. There's no way to make the consumer understand that this is what it takes. To have a natural-looking hair transplant. No one wanted to change the infrastructure of their practices because it cost money. No one wanted to train new staff because it cost money. Everyone was willing to stick with the status quo. And we changed that. So when you young guys are like now struggling between strip and FUE and this and that, realize how lucky you are to have choices. Choices of two procedures that could actually give you a natural result. Those choices didn't exist. You know, I started the show talking about this guy with his Facebook page, this guy who canceled his surgery because he saw his doctor's Facebook page, and his doctor appeared to be a lush. Now, during the break, I am like scouring the house because we had people over and they drank all of my alcohol. And I felt like having a drink. So all I was able to find was a bottle of rum and some iced tea. So I'm basically having some rum, some Bacardi, and iced tea. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm being hypocritical when I'm saying that this doctor should not have put his personal information as showing himself drinking and getting loaded and hanging out with, you know, and partying and hanging out with half-naked people. I like to drink. I like to enjoy myself. I like to relax. I like to do my show. Sometimes a little more relaxed than I think a lot of guys are comfortable doing a live broadcast, if that made sense. I'll give out the phone number in case you want to call in, 888-659-3727. But I'm kind of enjoying just sitting in front of the mic and doing a live broadcast. You know, when I was on terrestrial radio, having that on-air light come on and knowing, especially when I was on stations like WABC or 97.1 here in Los Angeles, and knowing that there were hundreds of thousands of people just waiting to hear your voice, to talk about a subject, again, that, you know, society doesn't allow us to talk about, it was thrilling. It really was. And we decided to come full circle. You know, I decided to take the show from terrestrial radio, because I'm an independent broadcaster, to satellite radio. I was on XM 157, I think. That's the station for like 3 years. And then I decided to do my thing on the internet and have complete control. Because even if you own your show, even if you produce your broadcast, even if you pay your staff, even if you barter, pay, or somehow get an exchange for your airtime, you're still, you know, you have a responsibility to your audience to really do the best possible broadcast you can do. And there's a certain excitement about that these guys are, they're waiting for it. And when I do this live broadcast, it is exciting to some degree. And now I'm excited that we are going to be back full circle on internet radio, but that's run by a terrestrial radio company. It only took 16 years for them to kind of get what I do. And we always got the numbers. We were the only weekend broadcast on all these stations that ever really got Arbitron numbers. I had a 2.7 share here in Los Angeles. And I never forget when the program director said, A, it's insane that people are listening to the Bald Show, and B, he has never seen a weekend program get such a large share of the audience. What we are going to accomplish in the next year is going to be groundbreaking. And I'm very excited about that. And I'm excited for hair loss sufferers. And that's what I wanted to say. 888-659-3727. Let's take a phone call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
You're feeling the power of your own voice tonight. I can tell.
What's happening, Marcus? How are you?
You've got a little rum delay this evening, which is nice. You're relaxed. The words are parsing out.
Thank you.
A little more slowly.
I appreciate that. Good. That's good. Actually, I just started my drink, but yeah, I appreciate it. I think I'm
wonderful.
A little slower in general. Could be in my medication.
Well, we all need that. Give me the 6-month update, if you would. It's been a while since I've checked in with this show.
Let's see. 6-month update. Nothing has changed except Joe's not on the program as often. He's always welcome to be on the show, but we are trying to.
Is he okay, or is this just?
From what I understand, he is okay. It's interesting. I was just forwarded an email today that was completely anonymous. It wasn't an email, but it was through our contact form saying that Joe fell down the stairs. And this is right before the show, so I haven't had a chance to call him. And he's in the hospital. I don't know if that's true because I'm pretty sure that Bald Jerry or Artista or somebody would have actually contacted us to let us know.
Right.
So I hope that's not the case.
I hope there's always a space for Joe on your show because I view him as the Ed McMahon, Paul Schaefer of the Bald Truth.
Dude, there always is a space for him. I told him that. I said, we're going to bring him in on the second hour. He's going to be able to do Joe's news. He's going to be able to hang out and talk. But we have to kind of create a little bit of a, positive platform for guys who are really suffering. Because to tell you the truth, man, the attraction, we were starting to really get the guys who are more like Joe, we're starting to become real groupies of the program, which is great. But we want people to have a positive experience as well.
I get you. Look, the world has kind of moved into this fappy talk, and you got to go with it.
Right.
I completely understand.
So what's happening with you?
But as one of those depressing Joe groupies, let me chime in on my 6 months. The last time I spoke with you, oh, wow. It was utter darkness, and I think I told you that I had a visitor who made a comment, not once but twice, that, hey, let me get out of your hair now that you have so little of it left.
Oh, yeah. That leaves a mark. Yeah.
Oh, does it ever?
Yeah.
Good pun intended. After, spending 6 figures plus on this whole ordeal over 2 decades, and, count in the psychological, punitive damages and the deferred income, it's $1 million plus, and I should have warranted results, but I've got none.
I know.
So at that moment, you even told me, hey, man, maybe I need to just get under a piece. And so, the despair was just spiraling down. And so at that point, my only option was to throw in the towel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I like.
Now you're saying throw in the towel and get yourself a piece, or throw in the towel and what?
Well, how can I throw in the towel now in some respects? Because first of all, I'm all scarred up, so I can't go the shaved route.
Right.
What I have is unacceptable. The peace makes me feel queasy. All I can say is this, though, Spencer. Despite all the mess ups, and my greatest flaw is not only do I hate to lose, but I don't give up.
Right.
And so, the last 6 months, I continued. I labored on. I soldiered forward and made some. I tweaked around. I tried to make some changes, and I end up going to the stylist to get a haircut. And he looked, and I wasn't looking at him eye to eye. I caught his expression in the mirror, and I was like, "Oh God, how bad is it this time?"
Yeah.
And then he turned the chair around. He said, "What are you doing to your hair?" And I was like, "Oh man, it's worse than ever." And I told him, I said, "First of all, I don't shampoo my hair anymore." That had just happened about 2.5, 3 months prior to this visit. I no longer shampoo my hair. I do wash it, but I don't shampoo it. And what's the difference? The difference is that I have a neighbor from India, and she tells me all these shampoos are kind of like a modern invention of the 1970s. They're garbage. And she basically has given me these decoctions of herbs. And they're simple herbs. They're things like hibiscus and alma and yarrow. So I was doing that. There's no sudsing. And so it's kind of strange at first. However, it maintains, I'll say this much in defense of it, it maintains your hair's natural oils. And it takes about a month to 6 weeks to get used to it, but your hair adjusts, and it is what it is. Secondly, I got a derma roller.
Wow.
And I started derma rolling. Started at 0.5, moved up to 1.0, and now I'm at 1.5.
Now, actually, 0.5, starting at 0.5, that's pretty hardcore right there, to tell you the truth. Because a lot of guys will start at the smaller 0.2s, and then go up to 0.5s, and you're at 1.5. So you're really causing a lot of abrasion. You're actually cutting into your skin.
I'm pretty gentle with it, though, because you can, your hand is the pressure gauge.
Right.
So I'm pretty gentle. And so anyways, I explained this to him. I said, these are the two things I've been doing differently since we last, sat in your chair. And I said, why? And he said, because you have more hair.
Really?
And Spencer, that was the first time, except for one other instance, right after I had not right after, but about a year after I had a transplant with the Botch brothers, as I called them, the brothers of Toronto, Canada hinterlands.
Right. Sure.
There was one incident where a stylist also said, hey, you have more hair. Other than that, this is the first time in my entire life that anybody has said, you have more hair.
Now, let me ask you this. You have been to see Joe Greco, and you have had PRP.
Right.
And you've had it done several times. Now, Joe is a huge proponent of derma rolling, not just during the procedure, but to take one home and to do it on a consistent basis. Is that why you were convinced to do it, or were you reading about it online?
He never gave me a derma roller, although in retrospect, when I think back, I was under anesthesia, in his office, because he does numb you. And I think the last thing he does before you leave the office, I think he rolls your head. I'm not positive about that. I never asked him, but I kind of got that sense.
He actually rolls your head before.
Okay, then it's before.
Yeah, it's before, yeah.
And so, but again, because, I'm numb under there, I don't know, and I wasn't really looking at what he was doing.
Right.
However, he never mentioned that to me.
Interesting.
All I can say, though, is now about twice a week, I roll. And I wash about twice a week now. That's it. It's about, it's pretty low maintenance.
Now, are you seeing the change yourself, or were you just alerted to the change initially by your barber, and then well,
here's the thing, and this, afflicts at an exaggerated, distorted level the bald community more than anyone else. When you look in the mirror, you psych yourself into seeing some things that probably aren't there.
That's true. Yeah.
That's how bad this bald affliction is.
I know.
And I can only say this. Yeah, I thought I was seeing something positive about it. I certainly thought that the consistency and the texture of the hair, you were talking about your long golden strands. My hair in its great heyday was silk. It was just pure silk that could go down to my waist.
It was unbelievable. I know.
And girls would come up to it feeling it. You know?
Dude, that was like my calling card. It wasn't even like, I don't even think people were looking at my face after a while. It was just my hair. And it was so easy to attract women at that stage of my life.
Right. That's why they call it the crowning glory.
That's right.
It's incredible. So, I was looking in the mirror and I was thinking, maybe something's going on here. And then when he told that to me, this is a no BS kind of guy. That just convinced me that, hey, something's at work here. And then, I would check, man. I would, get a mirror and check my crown and so forth. And I can only say this. I checked it today, in fact, and that was one of the reasons I ended up calling you, because it's like, wow, man, I haven't spoken, with Spence in the longest. And you know what? Where there were clearly defined bald areas before, I now have those areas now are not a full patch of hair, but what they are, it's a thinning look as opposed to a bald look. And that's significant.
It is significant. And there is absolute evidence that rolling, that basically causing these micro wounds will induce hair growth and actually can reverse the miniaturization process, in the areas that are miniaturized. It has been shown. Right. And Joe Greco is one of the first guys that really he brought this to the ISHRS, and he really believes in it. And he utilizes the derma roller before he does PRP. And usually, at least from the guys that I've spoken with, and I'm surprised that he didn't suggest it to you. I don't know why. He suggests that people roll at home. He even suggests that I do it. And I told him, I said, listen, Joe, I wear makeup on the back of my head. I don't want to start wounding my scalp and then put this makeup on. Unless things get worse, I'm not going to do it.
Okay, that's a good point, because, for instance, I too will wear makeup when I go out. If I don't go under a hat, I'll go under makeup.
Right.
But you're right. I will not do that unless, put it this way, I will only do that if I have rolled 2 days or before.
Yeah, if it's healed, it's different.
Right. If it's within 48 hours, I will not put the makeup on.
Right. So, but I have to be seen to some degree almost every day, or I have a meeting, whatever it is. It's difficult for me. And for me, listen, I'm in a different position than you are. So for me, having to do the, 5-minute makeup job, it's not the end of the world. It is what it is. It's how I live my life. But there are times I'm like, you know what, maybe if I put that effort into rolling, I can grow, even if it's just 30% more hair back there, it would make a huge difference. And there are guys who are claiming online that they are getting these results. And according to Joe Greco, he sees it all the time. So I absolutely believe there's something to what you're saying. There's no doubt. And your hairdresser told you.
You know what? And again, I didn't expect it. In fact, I expected the opposite when I saw his grimace through the mirror.
Yeah, you're like, oh, shit.
Exactly. I was like, uh-oh, the despair continues.
By the way, Suncast, you got to cut that last S word out. Sorry, go ahead.
Because I was in a dark place there for several months. But again, I refuse to throw in the towel. That is my flaw. It will be my, curse to the end of my life. But that's who I am. And so, I'm in so deep on this that I cannot turn back. Like these other guys who can either just shave it off or whatnot. That's not an option for me anymore.
Well, for guys who are just tuning in, why don't you give just a brief description of what you've been through the last 20 years?
I've been through everything. I've had hair transplants. I've had scalp reductions. I've had, whatever cure has been pronounced to mankind. The only thing I haven't done is Propecia.
Right.
I have done the PRP, and in fact, I now view the Dermaroll as kind of a mini PRP treatment. And I think what's happening in my case is that because I've had so much HT work, I think there still were some residual follicles that were implanted that weren't really maybe popping out, and those came to the surface.
And that's a possibility. And that actually is not it's not a bizarre thought. I mean, that is a possibility because it has been shown that sometimes, for whatever reason, there is some dormant growth or dormant hair that does not pop up. That's part of the follicle. So if say you got mini micrographs, there could be some hairs that just for whatever reason stay in that vellus state because they weren't necessarily, extracted within the natural grouping or the follicular unit. So sometimes these mini micrographs actually will carry dormant hairs. So absolutely.
I think you're on it. And I think what dermarolling is doing, it's kind of mimicking in a very subtle way the growth factors that Joe Greco actually injects into the scalp. Because what does that do? When you make an abrasion, your adrenaline starts to rush, and your growth factors now are coalescing around that site.
Well, just the the healing process itself is causing that to happen as well. So you're creating more collagen, you're creating more growth factors, and you're creating an environment for the kind of regeneration, which I absolutely believe in.
Right.
Yeah.
I do too. And here's one other anecdote. There are very few people I've really exposed myself to on this whole ordeal. And there is one, and she told me, she says, it looks like your hair is like on push-ups. It's got like some lift to it.
Wow.
That it did not have D4. And that part was correct. And I noticed that myself. But again, I didn't know if I was just deceiving myself in the mirror or not. But for her to say that was just validation that, you know what? I don't know how long this is going to last because, hey, I'm aging out. I'm not like 22 anymore.
Right. But that's unsolicited, and that's and same with your hairstylist, and that's the best.
Absolutely.
That's got to be the best feeling in the world.
You know what? It got me back in the game to keep at it because as I said, I have no other option. But if I'm the guinea pig that helps a lot of the young sufferers out there, then so be it.
I got to tell you something, Marcus. I've known you for a while. You've called the show for years, and even the last time that we spoke, you did not appear to be in a distraught or desperate state. Now, you voiced it, I think. But, it just, you could hear it in somebody's cadence and in somebody's tone. And you just never really have that. So as bad as you may have been, excuse me, I really think, you still got your shit together, dude. And,
part of that is because, hey, I feel lucky for life. For starters.
Right. Yeah.
And I've had tremendous family, beautiful parents. When I hear these sort of suicidal tendencies out there, that to me would be the most inane insult to my parents who brought me into this world and sweated to make sure that their child flourished.
Sure.
I could not think of terminating my life.
Yeah, but I mean, you said a mouthful. I mean, the fact that you appreciate your parents and the fact that they've done the best for you, and you realize that, and you obviously had a good upbringing and a functional family as opposed to a dysfunctional family, and you had a good relationship. It seems like with your parents, and you're grateful to them. There's a lot of people out there who don't have great relationships, who had issues with their parents, who didn't have any guidance or whatever it is. So when, they're thinking of their life's issues, they're not thinking about how their parents are going to feel if they off themselves, because they don't really don't feel that they have that connection to their family the way that you do, or a guy like Tim from Boston who called in has with his dad. I don't know if you heard that call, but I mean, that's a wonderful thing to have. That really is, when I look at young parents and I see guys, even people my age who are starting to have families, and I realize you probably shouldn't be a parent because I know the type of people they are and what they're going to end up kind of inflicting on their kids.
Right.
You know, it really does make a huge difference. So I think that you're extremely fortunate. That's why you've been able to handle all of the crap that you've been through. I mean, you've had it all, dude. You are like a roadmap of the worst in this industry.
Absolutely. And, and I have those feelings despite the fact that, you know what, I suppose I could lay it on my old man's doorstep that, hey, I got the gene from him.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, he gave me a lot. I mean, tremendously. He gave all his kids a lot. And furthermore, it's weird because even though emotionally I was closer to my mother, and as were all her kids, because she was the life of the family and the party.
Sure.
But it's weird. In death, I have more conversations with my dad than with my mom.
Yeah.
Because it's something about, he was just very centered, and he had these guiding principles that I refer to a lot. And I never expected this. I clearly thought that of the two, I would be having the more memories of my mother, and it hasn't proven to be that way.
That's pretty heavy, and that's pretty interesting, and I get that. I get that. I mean, I just lost my father, and
I'm sorry to hear.
Oh, well, thanks. And it was a tough, long situation, and I talk about the reality of my relationship with my father, and the difficulties that I faced, not only as a child but as an adult, and including the difficulties that he faced and the demons that he had to deal with, and
right.
But I still had, I guess, the ability to kind of like step back and look at, whatever the accomplishments were that he had in his life, and how, he dealt with certain things, and also the empathy to understand that he had a very tough life, and he did his best to give me and my brother whatever he could. And so I look at that stuff as, all right, that's positive stuff. So I try to focus on all of those things. And the fact that you could focus on whatever you're focusing on from your father, and that can help you with all the. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of stuff, dude. You're calling the show. There's a lot of new listeners. You basically described in brief what you've been through, but they can't even imagine the toll that having multiple surgeries and multiple failed surgeries can take on somebody.
Right, but you know what? I appreciate your perspective a lot, especially when anybody who bears a grudge with a parent, they need not just to get over it, but you have to put yourself in their shoes and the frustrations and the challenges that they had to go through when they were growing up as a teenager and then as a parent. And then, let's be honest, a lot of us are not really, maybe the children they wanted to have either when you think of it.
That's right.
Because kids grow up all sorts of different ways and beyond their parents' expectations.
That's right. And I couldn't even imagine. You're not a parent, are you?
No.
Yeah, and I'm not a parent either, but I can't even imagine having a child who is, causing a tremendous amount of difficulties in your life, and they're having difficulties in their lives, how that must be, and the burden that a parent has to deal with when they're dealing with a kid who's unhappy. And it's the whole thing's got to be tough. So, yeah, I mean, I always put things into perspective. I put my entire life into perspective and realized that, you know what? Yeah, I was stricken, as Joe would say, with hair loss at a young age. I found ways to deal with it and to save a lot of it. I'm very, very lucky that I didn't make certain mistakes and that I kind of followed a path that was logical to me, and I made this Achilles heel into my career. Extremely lucky. But there are so many people that don't have that. They can't put things into perspective. They can't appreciate what they have. I think about, instead of thinking about the fact that I have to, wear a can of hairspray and paint my head, I think about the hair that I have as opposed to the hair that I don't. And I kind of wish younger guys would feel the same way.
It's you know what? That's the glass is half full. And that's always better than the glass is half empty. Because, in the end, as they say, the pessimist might be right. Yeah, the world's going to go to hell, but the optimists are going to have a better time with it.
That's right, man. Listen, on that note, and that was very well said, Marcus, it's always a pleasure. I'm so glad you're doing better, and that, I think it's great. I wish you would kind of keep us updated on your derma rolling. And let these, for the young guys who are really trying to find something else besides finasteride, so many guys are so scared to take that, and I understand why. But I mean, they're they're buying all this gray market stuff. Maybe something as simple as doing this mechanical procedure on yourself a couple days a week could really work.
For any of the guys out there, I think the 1, 2, 3 bullet list would be in this order: Propecia, although I elected not to, but Propecia would be number 1. Number 2, PRP, and number 3, I'm convinced, is derma rolling.
Marcus, that's great advice. Thanks for the call. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Be good.
All
Bye.
right, take care. Guys, we got to close up shop. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. It was a fun show. I'm going to actually have to check on Joe because he did not call tonight, and maybe that email was legitimate or that contact through the contact form, except they did not give a way for us to contact them back. I'm assuming that if Bald Jerry is in the chat somewhere, that he knows how Joe is doing, but I will contact him to make sure that he's okay. Let me give out the websites. It's thebaldtruth.com to see archives of this broadcast and of the UK show, which is doing really well, by the way. I want to thank everyone who is listening in Europe and who is emailing us and who wants to participate in the program and wants us to do it on a more regular basis. We will be doing it on a more regular basis. This broadcast can obviously be heard on the GFQ network as well, and on YouTube's GFQ's YouTube page if you want to check it out there. If you can't, for some reason we get the archives up late on thebaldtruth.com, you could always check out YouTube or GFQ. You could also soon listen to us on iHeartRadio, which is very exciting, and all of the other online resources. If you want information on hair loss, basic information, and if you want to learn more about what you're dealing with, check out the American Hair Loss Association site, which is americanhairloss.org. If you want to interact with other hair loss sufferers, go to our message forum, which is baldtruthtalk.com. Look, what am I going to say about the message forums? There's a lot of insanity on all the forums. We try to keep it the safest place possible. We made the forum a private forum. And still the most trafficked private forum in the field and in all of, medicine, to tell you the truth. So anything that is health related, usually you don't have, there's not a lot of privacy there. We try to make it safe. However, there are plenty of guys giving what I would consider to be misinformation, just false information, basing their opinions on God knows what. So try to, take things with a grain of salt. See who the sources are. Know who the sources are before you take their advice. It's a great place to check out images of IHRS surgeons, learn more about hair transplant procedures. But really, you need to take things with a grain of salt. But there's some great people on there, and there's also a lot to learn. So check it out, baldtruthtalk.com. Until next week, be strong. God bless. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the program, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.